Hi, it's time for another verb of the day. Today's verb is revise. Let's take a look at some of the definitions for this verb. The first way you might hear the verb revise used is to mean to re-examine and make changes to something that has already been written or printed. A second way you might hear the verb revise used is to mean to reconsider and change something, especially due to new information or a changed situation. You should know that revise is a regular verb. To make the progressive tense, we're going to drop the E and then add ing to form revising. The past tense and participle forms of this verb are made by adding D, since this verb already ends with an E. When I say the base verb, revise, hopefully you can hear our ending sound there is really a Z sound. So our past tense ending is also going to make a D sound. Revised, revised. You'll be happy to know that I don't have any additional phrasal verbs for us to look at, so this will allow us to move straight on to our verb tense practice. Today, we're going to practice making sentences in the simple past tense, simple present, and the present progressive. Let's start with the simple past tense. You might remember we're using this verb tense to talk about an action that was completed at a definite time in the past. Sometimes that definite time is marked in the sentence. There's a time signal like the word yesterday or last month or 10 years ago, something like that. It's not always there, and that's okay because it could be understood as part of a conversation, something that someone said earlier. You know that you are talking about a specific time in the past. Could also be contained inside a paragraph or an article that you're reading. Again, with this understanding, I'm referencing a particular time in the past. So to make an affirmative sentence in the simple past tense, we're going to use our past tense form of the verb. Right? So many people think of this as the ed form of the verb. And this is true no matter what our subject is. If it's I, you, we, he, she, they, doesn't matter, it's the same verb. So let's look at an example sentence. The Department of Public Health revised its guidelines yesterday due to increasing COVID-19 cases. So here we're getting to this idea of a change to something that has been written. As a negative sentence in the simple past tense, I am going to make a pretty significant change. I'm going to use did not, so that's the past tense of do, did not, and then the base verb. So we don't use the ed form in the negative. Sometimes that can be a little confusing for students. So let's look at an example sentence. The students didn't revise their essays over the weekend. So here, again, we've got this time reference, time signal, this past weekend, and then our negative action. They did not revise. You're seeing the contraction form there, which is common from native speakers. Now, if I want to make a yes or no question in the simple past tense, I'm going to start with did, then I'll have my subject, then the base verb. Here is an example. Did they revise their plans because of the rain? So here's that connection to the second definition we looked at of the verb. Again, changing due to a change in circumstances. We didn't expect rain, now it's raining, or it rained in this case. Now let's take a look at the simple present. We use this verb tense to talk about habits and routines. We also use it to discuss facts. The thing to remember is that in the affirmative, we are just going to use the base verb as it is if our subject is I, you, we, or they. But if our subject is he, she, or it, so a singular person or thing, then we need to add an S to the end of this verb. And that's what you're going to see in the affirmative example. Let's take a look. The author revises her work many times before it is published. So an author, a professional writer here, makes many alterations, changes, improvements before we, the public, get a chance to read it. If I want to make a negative simple present sentence, I'm going to use do not and the base verb, or does not and the base verb. You might also hear don't in the base verb or doesn't in the base verb. Again, native speakers have a tendency to use contractions. So let's take a look now at a negative simple present sentence. Many students don't revise their work before submitting it. So turning it into their teacher for feedback or a grade. If I want to make a yes or no question in the simple present, I'm going to start with do or does, then I'll have my subject, and then the base verb. Here's another example. Do schools revise their curriculum regularly? So the course of study, their plans in regards to topics and subjects that will be covered. Now let's take a look at the present progressive. We're using this verb tense to talk about something that is happening right now, or an action that started and is continuing to be in progress. So to make the present progressive, I'm going to use a present form of be, am, is, or are, and then that ing form of the verb. Let's look at an example. Many schools are revising their plans due to rising COVID-19 cases and teacher absences. So this is something that is happening right now or is in progress depending on your school district. Many schools are announcing plans to have fully remote instruction for 2 weeks in order to try and limit the spread of COVID-19. If I want to make a negative sentence in the present progressive, I need to insert not after our be verb. Let's take a look at an example. He isn't revising his past statements. Here's the contraction form instead of is not. It would be fine if you said or wrote it that way. Finally, let's take a look at a yes or no question. I'm going to start with be, then I'll have my subject, and then that ing form of the verb. Are you revising your Thanksgiving plans due to the pandemic? So again, that's connecting to the second definition of revise. Now, let's take a look at some words that are related to our verb revise. And the first one we'll take a look at is the noun revision. It can have two different meanings. It could be the action of revising something. So here's an example of that usage. This article needs major revisions. So many updates, changes, improvements. A second way to use the noun revision is to mean a revised edition or form of something. So let's take a look at that usage. The school district proposed a revision to its back to school plan. So perhaps we had an original document. Now we have new information, different circumstances. So now we have a revised edition. Another related word that you might hear, particularly if you're taking college courses, studying history, the noun revisionism. It means the reinterpretation of a historical account or event. So this is really, I think, something pretty interesting to think about, right? And something many people are exploring now. As you go to school and learn history, especially here in the United States, you're taught certain things. And sometimes with more information, more research, right, we might have to step back and think about. So as an example of this, when I was going to school in the 1980s, right, everyone would learn Columbus discovered America, right? And that's not really true at all for a number of reasons. So there has been some revisionism in how we teach that information, and that can be a good thing. So let's look at an example of this noun in a sentence. This new version of events marked the most obvious attempt at a sweeping historical revisionism of last year's protests. So I realized this sentence might sound really complex. I borrowed it from a newspaper article, but again, I think this article was being rather critical of someone's interpretation of what happened during certain protest events. Connected to this is the adjective revisionist. So revisionist could also be a noun, but I think it's more likely you'll hear it used in an adjective form. And the adjective here means promoting a revised attitude to a previously accepted situation or a point of view. So hopefully we can see how this is connected to that noun revisionism we just looked at. And one reason I thought of this adjective is kind of connected to my example sentence. I love listening to Malcolm Gladwell's podcast, Revisionist History. So you might not know this writer, and that's okay, and the sentence might not make a lot of sense to you, but there's a particular writer who tries to go back and look at different historical events and reconsider what we were taught about them or what we thought of that particular event at a particular moment based on new information or just additional information sometimes. Pretty interesting. I learn a lot of new things. I know he can be a bit controversial. I think there are some people that don't like his style of writing or reporting, but I think it's pretty interesting. So, well, that gets us to the end of this week's verbs. So as kind of a recap, we talked about cite and paraphrase, brainstorm, revise. If you're wondering what the connection is, these are hopefully all verbs that you're doing when you're doing writing in an academic setting. So I hope these videos are helpful to you, and I also hope you have a great day. Thanks for watching.